Hi everyone, this is Hannah from Wonderful Woodlands, and I'm so excited. Today we're going to be doing a darling fall apple potholder pattern backed by popular demand. So you can see we're going to be doing an apple and a leaf and a stem. So stick with us today. This is a beginner friendly pattern. So if you've never knit before, I'm going to tutorial everything as I go. Like always, if you need a little bit more help, the tutorials are always available in the comments. You can go back and check the stitches and spend a little bit more time if you got stuck on something. For our yarns today, we used Cereza by Malabrigo Rios. I'll link to this in the notes. And then we also used Grass from Lion Brand 24/7 Cotton and Cafe au Lait from Lion Brand 24/7 Cotton. These two come ready to use in a ball. They don't require winding. This one does require winding. If you don't want to worry about winding up a ball of yarn, you can also get red in Lion Brand 24/7. That's a great shade for an apple. And then the needles that we're going to use today are size 7 single pointed needles, just one pair. And we are going to use a yarn needle, tapestry needle, and a pair of scissors. So let's dive right in and get started. All right, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cast on 14 stitches. So take your yarn, we're going to make one twist. You're going to catch the piece of yarn that's on the bottom of the loop. You're going to catch it through the loop and then pull tight. And this is called a slip knot. Now you're going to take your slip knot and you're going to put it on one of your needles. Pull the end to make it tight. Sorry, not tight, snug, but not tight because you want to be able to fit both needles through this loop here. So we're going to do a knit cast on method today. We are going for 14 stitches. So once you have both needles going through the same loop of yarn here, you're going to take your long end. This is the tail that's attached to your entire ball of yarn over here. You're going to take the long tail, you're going to wrap it around the bottom needle. You're going to catch this yarn through on the bottom, and then we're going to slip this back onto our left-hand needle. So you can see here now we have 2 stitches instead of 1. Let's do this again. So both needles are now going through the first stitch. We're going to wrap the yarn around, catch the loop on this side over here, and slide the stitch back on. Now we have 3, so we're going to 14. Wrap the yarn around, catch the loop, slide it on. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Now we're going to count our stitches one more time just to make sure we have the right number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Perfect. And this first row, we're going to do what's called a knit front back stitch. So this is really similar to the stitch that we used in our cast on method. Both needles are going to go through this first loop of yarn here. You're going to take your yarn, you're going to wrap it around the needle, you're going to catch your loop on the back. We've already done all this. Now here's where it gets a little bit different. You're going to take this needle in your right hand, you're going to go through the loop on the back side. So we're going through this stitch twice, once from the front and once from the back. That's why it's called a knit front back stitch. We're going to wrap the yarn around, we're going to catch the loop here. So we have 2 loops now on our right hand needle, and then we're going to slide 1 loop off the end. Now we're just going to do a basic knit stitch all the way across this row. So both needles going through the same loop of yarn, wrap your yarn around, catch the stitch, slide the stitch off the end. All the way across, wrap the yarn around, catch the stitch, slide it off. Yarn around, catch the loop, slide it off. We're going to do this until we get to the last stitch on the needle. Okay, this is my last stitch, so we're going to do a knit front back stitch again. Both needles are going through the same loop of yarn here. You're going to wrap your yarn around, catch your stitch, don't slide the loop off. Then we're gonna go through the back loop. So you're gonna come through this loop back here, wrap your yarn around, catch the stitch, and then you can slide it off. And then because this was our cast on stitch, it's a little loose, so just take your tail here and tighten it up just a little bit so it's snug. Now the next row is going to be super easy. You're going to turn your work around so this needle goes in your left hand now. All we're going to do is knit. All right, now you're going to repeat these 2 rows that we just did 7 more times. So that'll be rows 3 through 16. I'll meet you back here in just a couple minutes. All right, the next thing you're gonna do is really, really similar to the row that we just did. You're gonna knit all the way until you get to your very last stitch, and then you're gonna do a knit front back stitch again. So instead of doing a knit front back stitch at the beginning and at the end, we're only gonna do it at the end. And then after that row, you're gonna do a knit row. So you're gonna repeat this 3 times in total. After those 6 rows, you're gonna do 6 rows where all you do is knit. So I'll give you a few minutes, and after you've finished your 6 rows of knitting, we'll meet back here and we'll talk about what comes next. Okay, so this is about what your piece should look like by now. We did our cast on, we did our increase rows, we did another set of increase rows, and then we did 6 rows that were just knitting. So now we're gonna do some decrease rows. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do on this row is gonna be a knit 2 together through the back loops. So we're gonna take these first 2 stitches here, and our needle is gonna go through both of them, but it's gonna go through on the back side here. So you can see we have 2 needles going through both of these stitches, and we're going through the back part of the loop instead of the front part of the loop. Now you're gonna take your long tail of yarn here, you're gonna wrap it around, you're gonna catch the loop, and then we're gonna slide both of those loops off, so we've just decreased by 1. Now we're gonna knit until we get to our last 2 stitches. Okay, and then you can see I have 2 stitches left here on the needle. This time we're gonna knit 2 together, so we're gonna go through both stitches, but we're going through from the front instead of from the back. So both needles through 2 stitches, you're gonna wrap your yarn around, catch the loop, and then slide both stitches off. Now you're gonna flip your work over, and this row, all you're gonna do is knit. Okay, the next stitch we're gonna do is gonna be a knit 2 together through the back loops again. Okay, so you're gonna take your right hand needle, you're gonna go through 2 stitches from the back instead of from the front. Make sure your yarn tail here is on the bottom of your needle, and then you're gonna wrap it around. Ooh, I went through the wrong part of the loop, so let's do this again. Catch your stitch, and then slide both stitches off. And then this time we're just gonna knit all the way to the end of the needle. We're not gonna do the knit 2 together at the other end. We're only gonna do knit stitches. Okay, now we're on our 4th row here. So this row, all you're gonna do is knit all the way across. And once you finish these 4 rows, then you're gonna repeat these 4 rows again. So I will write all this down for you, and then I'll meet you back here in a few minutes and we'll keep going. Okay, so your piece should now look about like this. We have our decrease row on this side and we have our decrease row on this side, so we can see the shape of our apple starting to come together here. The next thing we're gonna do is the same as the very first row that we did a while back. I'll remind you how to do it. So we're gonna do knit front back, so knit into the front, and then we're gonna bring this back over here. We're gonna knit into the back part of the stitch, catch the loop, slide the stitch off, then we're gonna knit all the way down until we have 1 stitch left, and then we're gonna do a knit front back stitch again. And our last stitch here, we're gonna knit into the front, Don't slip it off yet. Knit into the back, wrap the yarn around, catch the loop, and then you can slide it off. Now flip your work over and we're just gonna knit all the way across this row. Okay, this row is going to be similar to the last one, but we're only going to do the knit front back stitch on this first stitch here. We're not going to repeat it again at the end. So knit into the front. Woo, I'm struggling. There we go. Knit into the back there. Catch the loop. So you have your 2 loops. Slide your stitch off, and then this time we're just going to knit all the way across. After this row, you're going to flip your work over and we're going to knit all the way across on the next row. And then you're going to repeat those 4 rows one more time. So I'll give you a few minutes and then we will meet back and go over the next section. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we are just going to knit all the way to the end. And then when we get to where we have 2 stitches left, we're going to do a knit 2 together. So we're just going to start out by knitting all the way across. And then I have 2 stitches left, so both needles are going to go through both stitches, wrap the yarn around, catch the stitch, and slide both loops off. Then we're going to flip our work over and we're just going to knit all the way across. After we finish this row, then we're going to repeat these 2 rows 2 more times. So I'll give you a few minutes to finish this and then we'll meet back for our next set of instructions. All right, now this is our last set of instructions before we bind off. You can see our apple starting to take shape here. So we are going to start this row with a knit 2 together through the back loops. Remember we did this one before, so your needle goes through the back loops instead of the front loops. We're going to wrap the yarn around, catch the stitch, slide it off, slide both stitches off the needle. Then we're going to knit all the way across until we have 2 stitches left. Okay, these are my last 2 stitches. This time we're going to do a knit 2 together. So both needles going through both stitches, wrap the yarn around, catch the stitch, and slide it off. Then we're going to flip this over. We're going to knit all the way across this row. And then after this row, we're going to repeat these rows 7 more times. And then after that, we're going to bind off. So I will give you a few minutes to finish up your work here, and then we'll meet back and we'll talk about how to bind off. All right, now the last thing you're going to do here is going to be a bind off row. You should have 14 stitches left. Binding off is really easy. It's really similar just to our basic knitting rows. So we're going to start by knitting our first 2 stitches. Then you're going to take the right stitch on the right needle and you're going to pass it over the left stitch. Now we're going to do that again. So you'll knit 1, pass the right stitch over the left, and then you'll knit another one. And we're just going to do this all the way across the row until we have 1 stitch left. All right, and this is our last one here. So after you've done this one, I always like to make this loop really, really big. Stretch this out, and then before I cut my yarn, I just take the whole ball of yarn and I pass the whole ball of yarn through the loop, and then I pull on the end to tighten this up here. And then from there I can decide how much of a tail I want for my weave-in end, and I really don't need very much of a tail here. Maybe just 4 inches or so. So probably about this much is good. So we'll just trim that right there. Okay, now the last thing you're gonna do on your apple here is you're just gonna weave your ends in. We only have 2 ends here, so it's nice and easy, and you're gonna do the same thing with both of them. So take your yarn or your tapestry needle, thread your yarn into it, and we're gonna go through 3 stitches in 3 different directions. So this is a garter stitch. This is really nice and easy here. I'm just gonna go up 3 stitches. And then I'm gonna go down 3 stitches. And then I'm gonna go up 3 stitches. And then I'm gonna trim my end here and call it good. Generally, I would call this the back of my work, but you can see this blends in so well you can barely see it. I'm probably gonna call this the front, but it's super, it's very well hidden. So even if you do end up using this as the front of your piece, you're not really gonna be able to tell. And then just go ahead and do that for your second tail here as well. And then we're gonna meet back and we'll talk about how to make a stem and a leaf for your apple. Okay, now we're gonna use cafe au lait here to make the stem for our apple. So we're gonna start with a slip knot, make a twist, catch the bottom piece through the loop and pull tight. Then we're gonna take our first needle, we're gonna thread it onto the needle, pull the end so it's snug. And then we're gonna knit cast on 3 stitches here, just like we did at the beginning. So both needles going through the same loop, wrap the yarn around, catch the stitch, slip it onto the end of the needle. Wrap the yarn around, catch the stitch, slip it onto the end of the needle. And then from here, we're just gonna knit all the way across. So we're gonna knit 1, knit 2, and knit 3. Then, instead of turning our work over, we're gonna slip these stitches back onto our left hand needle. Whoop. So you wanna make sure you're going through the loop that's on the needle, and sometimes it's easy to catch the loops down here at the bottom. So just watch as you go. And now you'll notice the yarn back here is coming off the left needle or the left stitch instead of the right stitch. So this is what's gonna create an I-cord for us that's gonna make a really nice stem. So as you knit, you're just gonna bring this across the back, knit this stitch like regular, wrap the yarn around, catch the loop, and then slide it off the end. Wrap the yarn around, catch the stitch, slide it off, wrap the yarn around, catch the stitch, slide it off, and then we'll slip these back. So we're gonna do this 9 times. This is number 3. And I'll meet you back here in a few minutes once you've done 9 rounds of this. So now the next thing that we're gonna do, I like to end my I-cords this way. So the first one we're gonna do is gonna be a knit 2 together, just because it gives it a little bit of shape up at the top. If we bind off straight across, we'll just kind of end up with a line straight across, and I feel like this shapes it just a little bit. So we're gonna knit 2 together, then we're gonna knit 1, and then we're gonna take our right stitch and slip it over our left stitch to bind off. And then we'll stretch this out nice and long, bring the ball of yarn through, pull it nice and tight, and then we'll trim our end. That's probably good. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make a leaf to go with our hat. This is exactly the same I-cord that we just worked in brown. So you're gonna cast on 3, and this one you're gonna work for 6 rounds, and then you're gonna meet me here and we're gonna keep going. So once you've done 6 rounds of an I-cord, we're gonna turn our work over and we're gonna start working front and back here. So we are gonna cast on 3 from here. So wrap your yarn around, remember like you're going for a knit stitch, and then add your stitch onto the end of the needle. So we're gonna do 1, 2, and 3. Then we're just gonna knit all of our 6 stitches. Okay, then we're gonna turn our work over and we're gonna cast on 3 again here. So 1, 2, and 3. And then this time, we're gonna knit 4, purl 1, and knit 4. So we're going to knit 1, 2, 3, 4. The purl stitch is a new stitch for this pattern. It's very, very, very easy. So you're going to take your yarn, bring it over to the front of your needles, and then instead of going through the stitch this way, we're going to come through the stitch this way, so your needle's pointing toward the left. Then you're going to take your yarn, wrap it around, catch the stitch on the back over here, and then slide it off the needle. And then we're going to go back to knitting. So bring your yarn back to the back, and we're going to knit 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we're gonna turn our work over. This time we're gonna do a knit front back stitch here. So you're gonna knit into the front, knit into the back here, wrap your yarn around, catch your stitch. You can see you have 2 stitches on this needle, and then slide it off. Then we're gonna knit 2, knit 1, knit 2. Then we're going to take our next 2 stitches. You're going to pretend like you're going for a knit 2 together stitch, but instead of wrapping your yarn around, you're just going to slide them off the needle and let them sit here for a minute. We're going to come to this stitch and we're going to knit this stitch. And then we're going to take our 2 slipped stitches right here, and we're going to pass them over the stitch that we just knit. So we're going to be left with just this stitch on the needle. Then we're going to knit 3, knit 1, knit 2, knit 3. Flip your work over. We're going to do a knit front back stitch again. So knit into the front, and then knit into the back, and then slide that stitch off. Knit 2. Then we're going to purl 1, so bring your yarn over to the front, purl this stitch, and then bring your yarn back to the back, and then we're going to knit 4. Okay, now you're going to repeat these 2 rows that we just did one more time, and then I'll meet you back here and we're going to do some decrease rows. Okay, now the next stitch we're going to do is going to be our knit 2 together through the back loops. So both needles going through both stitches. Remember, for our knit stitch, this is going to look like it's on the front, but you want this to be, pull it back here to the back before you make your stitch. Wrap your yarn around, catch just the 1 stitch right here, and then slide both stitches off the end of the needle. Then we're going to knit 1. We're going to do our slip 2 again. So we're going to slip 2, knit 1, and we're going to pass both slip stitches over the knit stitch. Then we're going to knit 1, and then we're going to do a knit 2 together here. So both stitches through both needles through both stitches, wrap your yarn around, catch the 1 stitch, slide both stitches off the end. You can see our cute little leaf is coming together here. Then you're going to flip this over. We're going to knit 2. Bring your yarn to the front, purl 1. Bring your yarn to the back, purl 2. Knit 2. Flip your work over. We are almost done. We're going to go knit 2 together through the back loops. Wrap your yarn around, catch your stitch, slide both stitches off. Then we're going to knit 1. Then we're going to knit 2 together. Flip your work over. We're going to knit 1, purl 1, and knit 1, and then we're gonna slip these two as if we're gonna knit them, but we're just gonna slip them. We're gonna knit this one, and then we're gonna take our 2 stitches. We're gonna pass them over. So we just have 1 stitch left, a nice little pointed end for our leaf. And then you're gonna take your whole ball of yarn, you're gonna pull it through the loop, and then pull this end to pull this tight. There we go. So you can see once we get our apple here, we have our stem, and we have our cute little leaf to go with our apple. Very adorable. Okay, you're gonna trim this. We probably just want about this much yarn or so we can weave our ends in. And then we're gonna attach our pieces to our pot holder. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this end. So this end of the green stem is gonna attach to the pot holder. So we're going to take this outer piece here, and we're gonna weave it in. And this, with the line of V's coming up the front, this is the front side here, so we're gonna weave our end in on the back, and it's gonna be 3 stitches in 3 different directions. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. And 1, 2, and 3. And then we can trim this end right here. And then this one we're going to weave. The stem doesn't really matter which tail you weave in because it's the same on both sides. So you're going to weave one of your tails in. So we're going to go 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3. Okay, this one, because it's an I-cord, I'm not going to go in 3 different directions. I'm just going to go all the way down here. Maybe not all the way down, but. And then I'll loop through it. I-cords, it's a little flexible the way you weave your ends in, but that's pretty far. We've come pretty much all the way down the I-cord. And then we'll just trim this here. I always like to go through the middle on my last one, and then I kind of pull it to hide the end so it gets kind of trapped in the middle there. And then we're gonna sew this onto our pot holder. The key here is that the brown is gonna stand out against the red. And so we're gonna do most of our weave-in stitches on, the brown as opposed to the red. So we're gonna bring one through here, and then we'll come back up through the brown, and then I might loop through this 1 or 2 more times so that it's nice and secure. You can see I'm just going for the middle point on the apple right here. And then I might grab the stitch on either side just to anchor this a little bit. Yeah, that's good there. And then, yep, we'll grab this one over here, come up through here. There we go. So that's really nice and secure. It's not going anywhere. And now I'm just going to take this tail and I'm just going to bring it back up the stem. Beautiful. And then we're going to do the same thing with our little leaf. Right here, we're kind of going to sew it onto the same spot. Oops. Make sure you have the right side facing out. Look at your pot holder and decide what side you want to be the front side and the back side. I want this to be the front side. So I'm going to have the little stripe on my leaf facing the same side here. So we're just going to go right through here and then back through our leaf. This one's going to be a little bit more centered on the right. So instead of catching a stitch over here, I'm going to catch just a couple stitches up the right side here, and I'm going to hide them. There's no perfect way to hide these, but you can kind of try to hide them as best as you can. And then we'll just come through here. I think that's good. So you can see there's a little bit of green on the back side, but it's really not that bad. And then we're just gonna weave this in down here. So I'm just gonna go back and forth down the stem, and then this one, because I have more space to weave in down here, I'm gonna bring this end down here, and then I'm just gonna do a couple weave-in stitches here. So we'll go 1, 2, 3. It might be overkill, but just for good measure. And then we'll just do 3 more, maybe just 2 more right there. That I think looks good. So I'm gonna trim my end. Oh my gosh, guys, you're done. Look at this cute little apple. So this is a really nice fall pattern. Congratulations, you did it. If you liked today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe and come back because we will be doing some more fun holiday themed patterns in the not so distant future. Thanks for watching.